start our Shacharit של Shabbat, משכן תפילה, page 186, מודה אני לפנייך. מודה אני לפנייך, רוח חי וקיים. מודה אני לפניך, מלך חי וקיים. די שחסרת בי נשמתי בחמלה רבה, אמונתך שחסרת בי נשמתי בחמלה רבה, I offer thanks to you, ever living sovereign, that you have restored my soul to me in mercy. How great is your trust. As we enter the synagogue, we say, Ma tovu alecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Israel. How wonderful is this space that we create together. How wonderful is our community. הנה מה טוב ומנעים שבת אחים גם יחד. 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 We continue on page 194 with the blessing for the well-functioning of our bodies. I invite you to read silently and to think about your body, to think about the vessel of our existence. ברוך אתה אדוני רופא כל בשר ומפליא לעשות. Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals all flesh, working wondrously. We'll now turn our Siurim to page 196 for the blessing for our souls.
אלוהי נשמה שנתת בי טהור שנתת בי טהוריי. אלוהי נשמה שנתת בי טהוריי, טהוריי. אלוהי נשמה שנתת בי טהוריי. אלוהי נשמה שנתת בי טהוריי. אלוהי נשמה שנתת בי Source of all creation, sovereign of all souls, praise at you, Adonai, whose hand is every living soul and the breath of humankind. Baruch ata Adonai, asher beyado nefesh kol chai, v'ruach kol basar ish. And on page 198 for Birkot HaShachar, Nisim bechol yom, blessings for daily miracles. And as we go and chant along the words of our tradition, I invite you to think about the things that you are grateful for, things that we might take for granted in our routines. But when we stop to think about them for a moment, we realize that without them, it would be very difficult to endure. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has given the mind the ability to distinguish day from night.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who opens the eyes of the blind.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who frees the captive.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who lifts up the fallen.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who stretches the earth over the water.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who strengthens our steps.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who clothes the naked.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who gives strength to the weary.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who removes sleep from the eyes, slumber from the eyelids.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me in the image of God, creating all human beings equal.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me free.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me a Jew.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who girds Israel with strength.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who crowns Israel with splendor.
Amen.
We turn our Siurim to page 204 for the blessing for the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu, la'asok b'divrei Torah. O Adonai, our God, let the words of Torah be sweet in our mouths and the mouths of your people Israel, so that we, our descendants, and the descendants of all your people Israel may know you by studying your Torah for its own sake. Blessed are you, Adonai, who teaches Torah to your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, amelamed Torah, le'amo Israel.
Amen. We continue in English, bottom of page 206. These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's parents, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple,
accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all.
And on page 212, for the blessing for the Psukei de Simra.
Baruch Shema, Ve'ya Haolam, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo, Baruch Haseh, Bereshit, Baruch Omer, Ve'oseh, Baruch Kozer, Umekayem, Baruch Merachem, Al Haaretz, Baruch Merachem, Al Abriot, Baruch Meshalem, Sachatov Lereach, Baruch Haila'ad,
וקיים לנצח,
Baruch Poder, Umatzil, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo,
Songs of praise we extol you and proclaim your sovereignty, for you are the source of life in the universe. One God, the life of the universe. Praise and glorious ruler. Your name is eternal.
Melech Me'ulam, Batishbachot, Melech Me'ulam, Batishbachot, Baruch Atah,
Adonai, Melech Me'ulam, Batishbachot. And on page 214, I think we need to work in the one we started last week with Havaya, with Tov Leodot LaAdonai. It's an Ima, you know. Let's try it together. Psalm 92. Tov Leodot LaAdonai. Let's try it again. Tov Leodot LaAdonai. ולסמר, לשמך עליון, טוב להודות לאדוני. טוב להודות לאדוני. טוב להודות לאדוני. אוי לשמר ולשמר לשמך עליון, טוב להודות לאדוני. להגיד בבוקר חסדך, להגיד בבוקר חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות, אמונתך בלילות, טוב להודות לאדוני. להגיד בבוקר חסדך, להגיד בבוקר חסדך, באמונתך בלילות, באמונתך בלילות, טוב להודות לאדוני. להגיד בבוקר חסדך, להגיד בבוקר חסדך, באמונתך בלילות, באמונתך בלילות, טוב להודות לאדוני. אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו, אשרי העם שככה לו, העם שאדוני אלוהיו, אלי האשרי. יושבי ביתך, עוד יהללוך, זה אלי האשרי. יושבי ביתך, עוד יהללוך, זה אלי. אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו, אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו. אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו, אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו. תהילת לדוד, רוממך אלוהי המלך, בעברך שמך לעולם בהר.
בכל יום אברכך, והללה שמך לעולם ועד.
גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, בגדולתו אין חקר.
דולתו ישבח מעשיך, וגבורותיך יגידו.
הדר כבודותיך ודברי נפלותיך עשיך.
ועזוז נורותיך יאמרו, וגדולתך אספרנה.
זכר רטובך יביאו, וצדקתך ירננו.
חנון ברחום אדוני, ערך אפיים וגדול חסד.
טוב אדוני לכל, ורחמיו על כל מעשיו.
יודוך אדוני כל מעשיך, וחסידיך יברכוך.
כבוד מלכותך יאמרו, בגבורתך ידברו.
להודיע לבני האדם גבורותיו, וכבוד הדר מלכותו.
מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור.
סומך אדוני לכל הנופלים, וזוקף לכל הכפופים.
עיני כל אליך ישברו, ואתה נותן להם את אוכלם בעתו. פותח את ידיך, ומשביע לכל חי רצון. צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו, וחסיד בכל מעשיו.
קרוב אדוני לכל קוראיו, לכל אשר יקראו באמת.
רצוני רב יעשה, בית שבת המשמע ויושיעם.
שומע אדוני את כל אוהביו, ואת כל רשעים ישמיע.
תהילת אדוני ידבר פיhi, ויברך כל בשר שם קודשו, לעולם בעד. ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם. We're on page 218 for Psalm 150. הללו אל בקודשו,
הללו בפי ארצו, הללו
בגבורותיו,
הללו כרמתו,
כל
הנשמה תהלליה, הללו, הללויה,
כל הנשמה תהלליה, הללו, הללויה.
הללו, ותקע שופר, הללו, בנבל וכינור, הללו, בטוב ומחול, הללו, במילים ועוגב,
כל הנשמה
תהללה, הללו, הללויה, כל הנשמה תהללה, הללו, הללויה, הללו, בצלצלי שמה, הללו, בצלצלי תרועה, הללו, בצלצלי שמה, הללו, בצלצלי תרועה,
כל הנשמה תהלליה, הללו, הללויה, כל הנשמה תהלליה, הללו. את שמך, אלוהינו ברוח כל בשר. Master of all generations, who is praised in a multitude of praises, who guides the world with abundant loving kindness and all creatures with mercy. The night neither slumbers nor sleeps, God awakens the sleeping, arouses those who slumber, gives speech to the mute. And God loosens the bonds of captives, God supports the falling and strengthens those who are bent over. You alone do we acknowledge. And on page 220,
וכתוב רננו צדיקים באדוני, לא ישרים נבוא תהילה, בפי ישרים תתעלה, ודברי צדיקים תתברך, ולשון חסידים תתרומם, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש, ומחלות ריבות עמך בית ישראל, ורינה ידבר שמך מלכנו, בכל דור ודור. ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו, האל המלך הגדול והקדוש, בשמיים ובארץ. כי לך נאה אדוני אלוהינו באלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, שושבחה אלה בזמרה, עוז ממשלה, נצח גדולה גבורה, תהילה ותפארת, קדושה ומלכות, ברכות והודעות מעתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני, אל מלך גדול בתשבחות, אל ההודעות אדון הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך אל חיי העולמים.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמך רבה,
אמן.
ועל מה דברה חילותה, וימליך מלכותם, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי בכל בית ישראל, בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב אמרו
אמן.
יש מרב המבורך לעולם ולעול בעלמיה, יתברך יתברך וישתבח מתפאר בתרומם בתנשא, בהתהדר, בהתעלה, בהתעלל, שמת הקודשה,
בריחו
להילה מן כל ברכתה, בשירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, למירם ועלמה, אמרו אמן.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. Praise are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, creator of light and darkness, who makes peace and fashions all things. And as we think of the renewal of day, we think about the renewal of opportunities for us to live our lives, to find a new connection and light. המאיר לארץ ולדרים, עליה ורחמים. המאיר לארץ ולדרים, עליה ורחמים. ובטובו מחדש בכל יום תמיד, מעשה בראשית, מה רבו מעשיך אדוני כולם, בחוכמה עשית מלוא הארץ, קנייניך, קנייניך, כל חדש על ציון תאיר. ונזכה כולנו ונעלה אורו. יה-לה-לה-לה-לה-לה, יה-לה-לה-לה-לה, 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 יה-לה-לה-לה-לה. אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות. On page 230, אהבה רבה אהבתנו אדוני אלוהינו, חמלה גדולה ויתרה חמלת עלינו. How deeply you have loved us, Adonai, our God, gracing us surpassing compassion. הרינינו בתורתך ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך. Lighten our eyes with your Torah. Focus our minds on your mitzvot. Unite our heart in love and reverence for your name. Let us in peace from the four corners of the earth, and lead us upright to our land. For you, O God, work wonders. You chose us truly. You drew us near to your great name, that we might acknowledge you, declaring you one in love. Praise be you, Adonai, who chooses your people Israel in love. Baruch ata Adonai, abocher ve'amo Israel ve'ahava.
Amen.
On page 232.
Shema,
Shema Israel Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
We continue on page 234. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. We continue in English, middle of page 236. Adonai said to Moses as follows, "Speak to the Israelite people and instruct them to make for themselves fringes on the corners of their garments throughout the ages. Let them attach a cord of blue to the fringe at each corner. That shall be your fringe. Look at it and recall all the commandments of Adonai and observe them, so that you do not follow your heart and eyes in your lustful urge. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת.
אמת ויציבהו בחביב בן עולם בדיל ביתו ביפה, דבר עלינו לעולם בהד. תהילות להל עליון, ברוך ומבורך, אך משה ומרים ובני ישראל, לך אנו שירה בשמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש. אוי נורא תהילות עושה פלא, נורא תהילות עושה פלא. שירה חדשה שילכו גאולים, לשמך שפת הים. שירה חדשה שילכו גאולים, לשמך שפת הים. יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. סיפור ישראל קומה לעזרת ישראל, ובקיומך יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני גואל ישראל. אוי אדוני שפתי תפתח, ופי יגיד תהילתך. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, v'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, יצחק ואלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל העליון, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכה חסי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומשיח ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה.
אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה מתים אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ברופא חולים, ומציל אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, מלמעלת על החיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלך כל הארץ כבודו, אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו, אדיר שמך בכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני במקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון, מדור מדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גאונך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. ישמח מותך שום לשם אפריונה, זכר נעשה בראשית אלוהינו אלוהי אבותינו
לא שאתה עונה לי, לא יהודנו. Grant peace, goodness, and blessing, grace, kindness, and mercy to us and to all your people, Israel. Bless us, our Creator, all of us together through the light of your presence. Truly, through the light of your presence, Adonai, our God, you gave us Torah of life, the love of kindness, justice, and blessing, mercy, life, and peace. May you see fit to bless your people Israel at all times, at every hour, with your peace. Baruch atah Adonai, umevarech et amo Israel b'shalom. We're at the bottom of page 260.
Oseh shalom bimromav,
Hu yaseh shalom aleinu
ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imnu, imnu, amen.
Oseh shalom bimromav, Hu yaseh shalom aleinu
ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel,
ve'imnu, imnu, amen. Lay, 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 yamba, lay, 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 yalla, lay, 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 yalla, lay, 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 yamba, lay, 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 yamba, lay, 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 yalla, lay, 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 yalla, lay, 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 lay. Yosef shalom imromav, Hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru, imru, amen. Amen. So needed peace. We will now turn our Siurim to page 362 in order to start the Torah service.
אין כמוך באלוהים, אדוני, ואין כמעשיך, מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני
ימלוך לעולם ועד.
אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. כי מציון תצא תורה, כי מציון תצא תורה, ודבר אדוני ירושלים. ברוך שנתן תורה, תורה, ברוך שנתן
תורה, תורה, לעמו ישראל, בקדושתו.
שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד.
שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד.
אחד אלוהינו,
אחד אלוהינו,
גדול אדוננו,
גדול אדוננו,
גדול שמו. גדול אדוני איתי, ונרוממה שמו יחדיו.
מזמור לדוד, אבו לאדוני ונאלים. מזמור לדוד, אבו Adonai kavod ba'oz. Abulai, lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Adonaios lemohitem, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. Adonaios lemohitem, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. Yai lai lai, hey, yai lai 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 lai. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
It's good to see you. It's good to welcome Shabbat together, to celebrate Shabbat together. So we are reading this week Parashat Kudoshim. So we'll talk about Kudoshim, and we'll talk also about the Parshiot, that we are watching in the news, and the things that are happening in our country. We want to give a mindful space, a Torah space also, to the discussion that there is around abortion in our days. Sorry to disappoint some, if that's a disappointing topic. It's not. But let's say something about the nature of abortion, and it's that there's a simple question in Jewish law. Is abortion permitted according to Jewish law, yes or not? Yeah, simply yes. Now, from where we know that? So Steve is saying because the life of the existent is more important than the life that is about to come. So that's one concept. But that concept comes a bit later, actually. It's a concept that appears later on in the Mishnah. But what I wanted to show you is actually something that is unusual in our tradition. And it's that there's a wide agreement over the idea of abortion. And now, I want to make a quick connection to our Torah portion. I want to address the topic of abortion. I was about to kind of let that pass. We have spoken about it, like from this bima, we have done classes. We have it's not a new topic, not for the Jewish people for sure, and not for us in this congregation. But I think that there's a Talmudic principle that says that you are not allowed to pray in a place without windows. So, what can we do? That's a law. So, when you recognize that something is happening outside, that something is happening in the world, you cannot let that pass. You cannot just say, okay, I'm going to focus on my prayer book and only in this Torah portion and keep my mind focused only in what I am instructed to do. You are supposed to be able to look aside and recognize that things are happening and they need to be addressed. So that's one thing. And the other thing is this Torah portion starts by saying, Kedoshim tiyu, kadosh ani. You shall be sacred, you shall be holy, because I am holy. So there is a question about holiness and the nature of sacredness. So can I ask you to share the abortion document? So this is the unusual thing I want to show to you. No, that one. That one is called Kedoshim. I send you to the other one, the one that is called actually abortion. Means the other one. Take a moment. We're almost there. Okay. So in the meantime, so the Important thing to start and acknowledge is that the Orthodox Union, the Rabbinical Assembly, and the Central Conference of American Rabbis, in the term of 2 days, they all address the matter, and they all express that, from a Jewish perspective, abortion should be one of the options. Now, I think that the most interesting document is actually the one from the Orthodox Union, which we have in the other document, and I wanted to share with you, because I think it shows a very interesting nuance that I wanted to be aware of. Are we there? No? It's loading. Okay, it's loading. I will start reading it to you. I do have it in front of my eyes. By the way, the reason we are not printing anymore the pages I prepared is because I feel it's more ecologic to do it in the screen. But it has some price here and there, right? Like the friends are doing their best possible effort. Last night, the leadership of the Union for Orthodox Jewish Congregations of America issued the following statement on the U.S. Supreme Court potential overturning of Roe v. Wade. The Orthodox Union is unable to either mourn or celebrate the news reports of the U.S. Supreme Court's likely overturning of, I never pronounce it correctly, Roe and Wade versus Wade. We cannot support absolute bans of abortion at any time, point in pregnancy that would not allow access to abortion in life-saving situations. Similarly, we cannot support legislation that permits abortion on demand at any time, point in pregnancy, and does not confine abortion to situations in which medical, including mental health, professionals affirm that carrying the pregnancy to term poses real risk to the life of the mother. As people of faith, we see life as a precious gift granted to us and maintained within us by God. Jewish law places paramount value on choosing life and mandates not as a right, but as a responsibility. Listen to what they are saying here. They are playing with the word right versus responsibility. They are moving from the language of law, the rights of, to Jewish language, which is kabod abriot, the respect for life. And so it's a very interesting game that they do there, very Jewish. Responsibility, safeguarding our own lives and the lives of others by behaving in a healthy and secure manner, doing everything in our power to save lives and refraining from endangering others. This concern for even potential life extends to the unborn fetus and to the terminally ill. Abortion on demand, the right to choose as well as the right to die, are thus completely at odds with our religious and halachic values. Legislation and court ruling that enshrine such rights concern us deeply on a societal level. Yet, that same mandate to preserve life requires us to be concerned for the life of the mother. Jewish law prioritizes the life of the pregnant mother over the life of the fetus, such that where the pregnancy critically endangers the physical health or mental health of the mother, an abortion might be authorized, if not mandated by halacha, by Jewish law, and should be available to all women, irrespectively of their economic status. Now, what is the Orthodox Union doing? They are going back to their worldview. In their worldview, who makes the call for these kind of situations? What? A doctor, and who else? The halacha, the law. Who holds the halacha? Who is the halachical authority? The rabbis. So what they're saying is, if a family comes and consults with a rabbi or consults with an halachic authority or with a doctor who is being able to hold halacha and science together, this should be totally kosher. Again, this is not the worldview of the liberals. This is the worldview of Orthodox. And they are saying, we cannot confine that authority to the state. This is for communities and for individuals with the rabbis and doctors to make those calls. Now, they are being careful with their language, but the language is, if you understand the nuances of orthodoxy, is very clear. The extreme polarization around and politicization of the abortion issue, that's not bode well for a much-needed, nuanced result. Human life, the value of everyone created in the divine image, is far too important to be treated as a political football. This is the Orthodox Union. Now, if you go down, you have a microphone here around? Oh, Rabbi Miriam, do you want to read the statement by the CCIR? I'm going to screen it quickly.
The Central Conference of American Rabbis is deeply disturbed by what appears to be the decision of a majority of justices of the United States Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade. Though we are aware that the leaked draft by Justice Samuel Alito in Dobbs v. Jackson, Women's Health, is a draft at this point, cause for concern is real, given the known views not only of Justice Alito, but also of Justices Thomas, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett, and at least to a degree of Chief Justice Roberts. If it were to become a Supreme Court decision, the leaked draft would lead to the severe restriction or elimination of abortion rights in about half of U.S. states. The CCAR proudly participated in an amicus curiae brief submitted to the Supreme Court in support of the respondent, Jackson Women's Health, and of reproductive freedom. Until the final moment of a Supreme Court decision, Reform rabbis will continue to advocate for the preservation of Roe v. Wade. If indeed a decision similar to the leaked draft is the court's decision, CCAR rabbis will continue to oppose state laws that restrict abortion rights.
Let me pause you 1 second there. So the reform movement, way less nuanced. They're not going back to explaining what the halakha and what the Jewish law and what are the considerations. That very clearly, we already know, and they are out arguing that should be allotted the right of abortion, etc., etc. Now, can we go to the RA? The next one. Next, like 2 pages down. Go down. Perfect. Now, Miriam, can you start from the RA is deeply traveled? RA means Rabbinical Assembly, and is the Rabbinical Union of the Conservative Movement.
The RA is deeply troubled by reports that the Supreme Court will soon nullify the constitutional right to abortion. Reproductive freedom is again under assault, this time from the highest court in our nation. The RA supports full access for all those who need abortions to the entire spectrum of reproductive health care and opposes all efforts by governmental, private entities, or individuals to limit or dismantle such access. The Committee on Jewish Law and Standards of the Rabbinical Assembly has affirmed the right of a pregnant person to choose an abortion in cases where continuation of a pregnancy might cause severe physical or psychological harm, or where the fetus is judged by competent medical opinion as severely defective. This position is based on our members' understanding of relevant biblical and rabbinic sources, as well as teshuvot, modern rabbinic responsa. Jewish tradition cherishes the sanctity of life, including the potential of life during pregnancy, but does not believe that personhood and human rights begin with conception, but rather with birth, as indicated by Exodus 21. Denying individuals access to the complete spectrum of reproductive health care, including contraception, abortion-induced devices, and abortions, among others, on religious grounds, deprives those who need medical care of their constitutional rights to religious freedom. The RA has consistently supported these reproductive freedoms for over 50 years. There continue to be efforts in the United States on both the federal and state levels that pose existential threats to reproductive freedom, especially so-called heartbeat bills. The Rabbinical Assembly emphatically opposes all such laws and legislative or executive moves. As the focus of the debate shifts to the U.S. Congress, we call on our members to contact their senators and representatives and demand they advocate for these fundamental rights in each and every state.
Thank you. So let's do a quick screen over some resources, and then I want to share with you an idea, and I hope that we will make a quick transition into Parashat Kudoshim. I think that there's an important concept to keep in mind in the context of the conversation that we're having in the United States around abortion and how we are going to manage ourselves in the public discussions and the conversations that we will have from now on. I think is found very pointedly in Parashat Kudoshim. So in the book of Exodus, friends, I need you to be on top of the file, so you need to go down in the file. The other file, this file, go down. Thank you very much. I need you to be really, really sensitive to be moving with me so we can do it timely, okay? Thank you very, very much. We need two microphones here, right? So, as always. When men fight and one of them pushes a pregnant woman and a miscarriage results, but no other damages ensues, the one responsible shall be fined according to as the woman's husband may exact from him. I'm laughing at the word husband, I know. It's kind of, but that's the Torah structure, right? The payment to be based on reckoning. But if other damage ensues, the penalty shall be life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, and hand for hand, foot for foot, burn to burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise. Now, what's the Torah talking about? Well, to put it very simply, Torah is referring to the fetus as property. And bluntly and clearly as property, as saying, if there is a damage that was created to your property, a miscarriage happened, according to the laws of Nesikin that are taken from these kind of concepts in the Torah and quite developed in the Mishnah and later on in the Talmud, it's a payment that needs to be set. We are not talking about life. It's totally disconnected from life because they talk about life in a different context. But if the pregnant woman was injured and the result of that injury is a miscarriage, then we are talking about property. You lost property. That's how Torah refers to this. Now, I want to go down to the Mishnah. This is what Steve was referring to. Do we have microphones around? Someone wants to participate and become a reader, quick reader? Gabe, you want to read? Gabriel, go.
Yes, off a microphone.
If a woman is having...
If a woman is having trouble giving birth, they cut up the child in her womb and bring it forth limb by limb, because her life becomes more the life of the child. But if the greater part has come out, one may not touch it, for one may not set aside one person's life for that of another.
Period. Now, the rabbis in the Mishnah go to the most, terrifying description of how to end the pregnancy. Like they don't save any bad picture for our imagination, right? They go to the worst of the worst. They say, even if you need to do that, you got to do what you got to do in order to save the life of the mother. Now, once the baby is a baby, which means it's out, then it's a different story. Once there's a portion of that human body out, it's considered life, and then you need to fight to preserve both lives. There's no life that can set preference or precedent for anyone. Now, let's jump a little bit, and I want to show you. I just say this. So technically, the Talmud refers to the life of the fetus for the first 40 days as water. Nothing else than water. I'll you know what, if Yemamot, 69b, 9 to 10. Miriam, can you read? Go down, 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 down. There. Miriam, do you want to read?
The Gemara asks, and about marriage, were they concerned? Isn't it taught in a Baraita, in the case of the daughter of a priest who married an Israelite, and her husband died on that same day, she immerses to purify herself, as she is ritually impure during to their intercourse, and she may partake of truma that same evening? Evidently, the sages were not concerned that she became pregnant from the initial act of intercourse, even that of marriage. Rav Chisda said, she immerses and partakes of truma only until 40 days after her husband's death, when there is still no reason for concern, as if she is not pregnant, then she is not pregnant. And if she is pregnant, until 40 days from conception, the fetus is merely water. It is not yet considered a living being, and therefore it does not disqualify its mother from partaking of truma.
Yeah. Truma means contribution. It's the donation that was supposed to be made. So thank you for asking. So the rabbis, they are addressing it like in a completely different context. They are not even thinking about it. And I just want to show you a few classic pieces of halacha, maybe more modern. Rabbi Mordechai Winkler says, mental health risk has 1913. Mental health risk has been definitely equated with physical health risk. This woman in danger of losing her mental health unless the pregnancy is interrupted, well, would therefore accordingly qualify. Rabbi Ben Zion Chai Uziel, it is clear that abortion is not permitted without reason. That would be destructive and frustrative of the possibility of life. But for a reason, even if it is a slim reason, such as to prevent disgrace, then we have precedent and authority to permit it. Rabbi Ben Zion Hai was the chief Sephardic rabbi of Israel. It's not Nico Sokolovsky from Temple Beth Tikvah in Fullerton, who is a liberal rabbi, right? Rabbi Cass Abelson, there is clear precedent in the tradition to permit abortion of a fetus to save a mother's life, to safeguard her health, or even for a very thin reason, such as to spare her physical pain or mental anguish. And I think that what the rabbinical tradition says is that the principle of autodetermination should be a guarantee for each one of us. I want to propose another idea. What's the first mitzvah in the Torah?
No, go forth and multiply?
Yes, prove verbu. So the first mitzvah in the Torah is, go and have children. Go and make children. Fill the earth. And if they are crying in the synagogue, I think it's fine. We love children. It has nothing to do, the idea of abortion has nothing to do with our love for children. It has to do with the guarantee for human life, oppositely of how this is being explained. There are two things that happen in the book of Genesis. One is a mitzvah, and the other one is a given. The first one, that I think are connected to each other in this context, and then we're going to move into Parashat Kudoshim. The first one is that we are given the mitzvah of pru verbu. And you will say that biologically, the instinct to fill the earth, to bring children to the world, is an instinct. On the other hand, in order to fulfill that mitzvah, what happens immediately after that, a few chapters later, is that we discover in the story of creation one of the most important components, the thing that distinguishes us from the rest of the creation, and it is What's the story behind the tree of knowledge? What's the real story behind the tree of knowledge? You are not supposed to eat from it, right? But what happens? They do it, right? So I always, every time we read that Torah portion, I tell them the same story.
Eve
So
is punished with the pain of childbirth.
childbirth, beautiful, but that's not going in that direction, but beautiful comment. No, what? It's about choice. Thank you, Mark. The tree of knowledge is set in the middle of the garden, and God tells them, you can eat from anywhere, you teenagers, but that one in the middle, that one that they put in the front of your eyes, that one, don't touch it. And what happens?
They touch it.
They do touch it, right? Like, oh, surprise. Now, that situation that for some religious views is considered as the original sin or as a sin, from our perspective is not. Some people will say in our tradition, well, that's sinful behavior, not following God's instructions. But on the other hand, when the Torah says, let's make a human in our image, the rabbis explain that God is talking to the angels. Now, what is the distinction between human beings and angels? In our tradition,
Was it that angels can create?
angels can create. But let's make a shortcut, free will.
Okay.
Angels have no free will. Human beings have free will. Now, if you want to guarantee free will, and you want to guarantee the mitzvah of go forth and multiply, you need to have the two of them together. They come together. They are together. And it's a mitzvah is given to the individual. Exactly as our free will. And I think that we need to advocate for free will. Not for freedom that is mindless, but for free will. And of course, let's go to Kedoshim. Can you move into the text? So Parashat Kudoshim, I will get back to the part of abortion later. I will mention something about it in a few minutes. Yeah, let's get to the English of that and make it fit. Thank you, friends. Parashat Kudoshim, we read a part of it in Yom Kippur. Now, and I took verses 1 to 19 that are the most classic verses or the most known verses of Parashat Kudoshim. What's Kudoshim about? Holiness, right? But this idea of holiness starts with a condition. Exactly as Proverbu and free will, it starts with a condition. The condition says, you shall be holy, your holiness, because I am holy. Because you are supposed to be imitating me, because you are supposed to be connected with me. How are you going to connect with me? And then there is a list of laws. This is how you're going to be holy. And now, I think that Parashat Kudoshim is about decency. Just try to be decent. Right? Now, why is about decency? Let's go just to the parts that I marked with yellow. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap all the way to the edges of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. You shall not pick your vineyard bare or gather the fallen fruit of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger. I am your God. Now, what's this idea about? It's about being able to separate a part of your earnings. Now, is that by definition tzedakah?
Righteous giving?
No, it's a law. Like tzedakah is a law also, and it's not free will completely. The mitzvot are a paradigm in the context of free will, right? You choose the mitzvot.
Right.
But tzedakah is an obligation, and this is an obligation. But what's the mitzvah that comes immediately after that? You shall not steal. Meaning that those corners and those fruits that have fallen, they are not yours. They don't belong to you. But Torah is saying, no, not all you have, not all the things that are around you, not all the wealth that you produce belongs to you. And if you take it, you are stealing. Now, you shall not steal. You shall not deal deceitfully or falsely with one another. You shall not swear falsely by my name, profaning the name of your God. I am your God. Now, what does it mean to swear falsely by God's name?
Saying God said to do something when God didn't, like using God's name to justify something that God had nothing to do with.
Mm-hmm. I think that that's one of the possible interpretations. To say, it's not that I am representing my own ideas. No, this is the word of God. And therefore, these are the decisions that we are supposed to be making. When you divinize your political views, as opposed to say, well, this is my interpretation, this is how I'm reading the text, like the fundamentalistic reading of the Torah, of the Bible, I think in this case it's more Bible than Torah. We don't have so much fundamentalistic readings in our tradition because Jewish tradition is about interpretation. Here and there we deal with fundamentalistic readings, but that's not the foundation of who we are in any denomination, in any Jewish denomination. So I think that to say, well, this is not my personal opinion, this is God's opinion, as we're hearing, I think that answers to that idea, to use the name of God in vain. Now, you shall not defraud your fellow, you shall not commit robbery, the wages of your laborer shall not remain with you until morning. That's an interesting thing. It goes back to this idea of not stealing. If you're supposed to pay someone, and those that work in the office knows how we take that seriously. If you're supposed to pay someone, you're supposed to give someone's money to, and you say, I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll do it next week, I have no time today. You shouldn't go sleep that way. You cannot go sleep quietly knowing that you have someone else's money. You're not supposed to. And if you do, the Torah says you're stealing. Now, I think that there's an important foundation here that has to do with empathy, understanding the experience of the other, with understanding that, no, when the widow and the orphan are taking food from your corner, you are not doing tzedakah. They are taking something that doesn't belong to you and socially belongs to them. When you are going to sleep with the money that you were supposed to pay to someone, no. You are robbing. You are not just holding back your money, you are robbing. You are stealing from someone else. And I think that when you use the name of God to justify your political views, you're robbing too. This time God. Now, you shall not insult the deaf or place a stumbling block before the blind. Now, the pshat, the simple level of placing a stumbling block, well, it's a stumbling block before someone who is blind. Can you think of an application to this idea? Preventing abortion. For example, you could say preventing abortion or preventing a medical treatment. If you are a doctor, whatever medical treatment, we are talking about abortion, but not advising or advising a person to do something that fulfills your ideas or your vision when the other person is unaware or has less knowledge, for example. So in a simple level, if you advise a friend to make this or other decision, and your friend is unaware of a certain situation, certain conditions, and you are aware, and you are saying, you are placing a stumbling block before a blind person. Because the idea of blindness, who opens the eyes of the blind that we daven in the morning, is about awareness. You are not supposed to cheat the unaware. The stumbling block is don't cheat the unaware. you can be also the unaware in different situations. You cannot create a society in which we cannot have some level of trust on each other. Let's keep going. Now, where are we? You shall not, and you shall fear your God. Now, why you shall fear your God in this context? Because the one who is blind doesn't see you. And then God said, well, I see you. I see you. Now, if you don't believe in God as an external entity, so he's the most important component is that you see it. You become aware of your own corruption. So, see, if you are not afraid of cheating on the other person because you don't have enough empathy, so look at the mirror and see what you have become. And that's the fear of God that I believe the Torah is inviting us to experience. You shall not render an unfair decision, and here's the important thing, do not favor the poor or show deference to the rich. Judge your king fairly. Now, this idea of favoring the poor, doesn't your heart break for that? Like, I think, and the Torah, I think, is challenging exactly that. When you say, I'm going to misjudge a situation because still, like, this person is rich and this other person is so poor, like, there's no problem for this rich guy or the rich girl to pay for this, I don't know, messy situation, whatever that might be. On the other hand, this poor person, well, what the rabbis will say, when you are making that kind of judgment, not the real judgment, but the social judgment behind the judgment, you are following your Yetzer Hara, your evil inclination. Why? Because the rabbis will explain that you are kind of serving your own comfort. And when you are supposed to provide justice for a specific situation, you are supposed to provide justice for the specific situation without favoring the rich or the poor, just trying to be as just as possible according to the structure of the law. Do not deal basely with members of your people. Do not profit by the blood of your fellow. And in the translation, they clarify Israelite, but it's your fellow. And here's what I wanted to get. You shall not hate your kinsfolk in your heart. לא תשנא את אחיך בלבבך. Reprove your kin, but incur no guilt on their account. I want to read it for you in Hebrew. לא תשנא את אחיך בלבבך, הוכח, תוכיח את עמיתך, ולא תישא עליו חטא. I want to stop there. And I want to go to a Hebrew. Can you go to a Hebrew, please?
Up. There we go.
You there? Great. So, לא תשנא את אחיך בלבבך. Don't hate your sibling, your brother, your sister in your heart. הוכח תוכיח. What does it mean to להוכיח? Friends, come on, להוכיח. What's the meaning of the word להוכיח? To prove. Prove or reprove, and the English translation to that is rebuke. הוכח תוכיח, but it appears twice. So there's a question, why twice? And then, הוכח תוכיח את עמיתך, your peer, your friend, and don't carry or don't לא תישא on a transgression on his account. And I want to make a quick.
The repetition isn't that emphasis.
What?
The repetition is emphasis.
Correct. Why? Why הוכח תוכיח? Why rebuke?
Like she'll surely rebuke. Like.
Well, the first layer of the explanation is you need to be, don't doubt it. Go and do it. It's important. Once again, when you refrain from providing rebuke to someone who is supposed to get a piece of rebuke, are you serving your fellow? Are you serving your society, or are you serving your own sense of comfort? Saying, oh, this person is killing himself, or is doing something terrible to himself or to herself or to a society, but I'm not going to be that friend that criticizes. I'm not going to be the critical friend. I'm going to be there for him and say nothing. Well, the Torah says that's wrong. That's a transgression, and you are a transgressor right now too. Now, the Chach Tochiach, Torah Hasidut, the Hasidic teachings go to the idea of, the Talmudic idea of aposek bemumo posel, which basically means that when you are criticizing someone, when you are seeing something wrong in someone else, it's probably because you can recognize that in yourself. So when you come to provide rebuke to someone else, you should do that. You have to do that. You have an obligation, but make sure that you are carrying a mirror and that you are looking at yourself at the same time. Now, the second part of the pasuk is etamitecha, your friends. Now, I heard from someone a beautiful distinction for this. Like, are you a person who takes care of saying nice things to your friends when they do something nice? If you don't, then make sure that you are also not the person who is going to criticize your friends, right? Because if you don't say nice things when they do nice things, it means that you are not a real friend. And if you are not a real friend, if you are not a real peer, then the second part of the pasuk, etamitecha, you cannot fulfill. So you're just rebuking. You don't have a mirror, and you don't have any kind of relationship with that person, so you don't really care. And I think that the foundation of Ochach Tochia is about caring for one another. When you go and you provide rebuke to someone, it's because you care. And because you want that kind of proximity. And you are, and lotisa alav het, beautiful interpretation also is, lotisa alav het, people will say it means not to carry a het, a sin, a transgression on their behalf, right? Because if you don't say it, that's the transgression. But you can also say that it means not to throw in their faces. Tisa is to carry up, to lift up. You're not going to rise the issue. You don't have to. You don't have to necessarily say what you are rebuking, because also many times people don't have the ability to hear what you might have to say. And so the most beautiful form of rebuke that comes from this pasuk is the one that is articulated by leading by example. Just by making sure that your friend sees you incurring the right behavior. Not by you criticizing the fellow, sometimes you have to do what you have to do, but by trying to motivate and inspire by example. And here I want to go back to conclude this, to the idea of, we'll talk about you shall love your fellow yourself in a different opportunity, which is like the next sentence. I want to go back to the discussion around abortion and about our political discussions here in the United States. We are so busy criticizing one another. We are so busy attacking one another that we are not really rebuking one another. We're just screaming in each other's faces. And I think that there's clearly going to be an important social battle in the next couple of months or years. We are entering a chapter in which deep discussions about the sacredness of life are going to be held. And I want for us to be able to approach these discussions with the idea of Ochach Tochiach et amitecha, like to come to these conversations while we are holding a mirror and looking at ourselves. If that means that I want to be more civically engaged, I want to make sure that I participate in the elections, or I want to make sure, like the things that I need to tell to myself. When we engage in these conversations, to be holding a mirror so we can see ourselves. And to make sure that when we are addressing something to someone else, we also fulfill the component of amitecha, of your friend. If you see the one who thinks differently as your enemy, this rebuke worth nothing. If we keep relating and interacting with each other like we are enemies, then nothing of what we have to say will have any value. And because we need to reclaim the value to talk to one another and the value to have a decent society, I invite all of us to hold a mirror and to have discussions with those that we disagree with, but remembering that they are not enemies. They're human beings that think differently. Shabbat Shalom.
Parashat Kudoshim begins on page 894 in the Blue Book. Right at the top, Vayid Bar. Yam tu, Yikasil, Gabriel Ben Baruch, Halevi, Vitzurel, Leah Nachuma, Untitled Rivka Bat Shmuel Valea, Steve Velasco, Violet Pesner, and reading will be Mark Filowitz.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai mevarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein ha'torah.
Amen.
Amen. V'daber Adonai el Moshe lemor. Daber al kol adat b'nei Yisrael. Yamarta alechem kedoshim. Tiyu ki kadosh ani Adonai Elohechem. Ishimo v'avi tiru. V'et shibto hai. Tashkaru ani Adonai Elohechem. Al tifnu el ha'elilim. Elohei ma'asecha lo ta'asu lochem ani Adonai Elohechem.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam. Asher natan lanu Torah emet. V'chayei olam notah b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai notein ha'torah.
Amen.
Amen.
Very good, Mark.
Yasher Koach. Continuing now on page 894 in the second column. Yam tu, Avraham ben Avraham v'Sara, Esther bat Avraham v'Sara, Teresa and Owen Zhao in Zoomland there. And reading will be Daphne Goodwin.
Baruch Adonai mevarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Chamra Lauma Vahen, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch Atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
אמן. וכי תזבחו זבח של עמים לאדוני, ברצונכם תזבחו, ביום זבחיכם יאכל וממחרת, והנותר עד יום השלישי באש יישרף, ואם האכול יאכל ביום השלישי, פיגול הוא לא ירצה, ואוכליו עוונו יישא, כי את קודש אדוני חילל, ונכרתה הנפש ההיא מעמיה.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו ברא אמיתית, וחיי עולם ומתן באלוהינו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen.
Yasher Koach. Yeah, we're continuing on page 895 now, top of the page. Yam Du, Gabriel ben Asher ve'Esther, Yael bat Ephraim ve'Josephina, Gabriel and Valerie Aram, and reading will be Nietzsche's not here? Daphne Guterman again. Thank you. Thank you for the correction.
Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
אמן. ובקוצריכם את קציר ארצכם לא תכלה, ועצתך לקצור, ולקט קצירך לא תלקט, וכרמך לא תעולל, ופרד כרמך לא תלקט. לעני ולגר תעזוב אותם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם. לא תגנובו ולא תכחשו ולא תשקרו איש בעמיתו, ולא תשבעו בשמי לשקר, וחיללת את שם אלוהיך, אני אדוני.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Continuing with the Mafter, it will be found on page 906, second column, second line. Yam Du, Moshe ben Avraham v'Aharon Moshe ben Avraham v'Rita. Marvin Reed and Mark Silverstein, yours truly, and reading will be Gabriel Newman, Cantorial Fellow.
Yeah, no?
All right. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai mevarach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. והבדלתם בין הבהמה הטהור לטמא, ובין העוף הטמא לטהור, ולא תשקו את נפשותיכם בבהמה ובעוף ובכל אשר תרמס האדמה אשר הבדלתי לכם לטמא. והייתם לי קדושים כי קדוש אני אדוני, ואבדל אתכם מן העמים להיות לי ואיש או אישה, כי אדוני בהם או ידני מות ימותו, ואבן ירגמו אתם דמיהם בה.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam notav b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai
נותן התורה.
אמן.
יש ברך אבותינו ואמותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב, אצל רבקה רחל ולאה, הוא יברך את כל העולים והעולות לתורה. May the one who bless our ancestors will bless all those that came up to the Torah in honor of God, Shabbat, Torah, and our community. May God bless all of you with health, prosperity, and success in all your endeavors, together with all Israel. And let us say,
Amen.
and also take a moment while the Torah is open to acknowledge those that are dealing with illness in their souls, in their bodies, those that are dealing with addictions. And in these days, we think of those that are carrying grief as an illness, as a pain that we ask to be healed. ישברך אבותינו ואמותינו, אברהם יצחק ויעקב, שרה רבקה רחל ולאה, הוא יברך את החולים. If you have a name that you like to share, please do so. If we have names emerging from Zoom, this is the time to read them. May the best Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send to all of them a complete renewal of body and spirit. And let us say,
Amen.
רפואה שלמה והחלמה מהירה, a complete and a fast recovery. We wish to all of them. We will now turn our series to page 374 for Agba and Glilila. בסוד התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה.
שלושה דברים, שלושה דברים, שלושה דברים, העולם העולם עומד. שלושה דברים, שלושה דברים, שלושה דברים, עולם העולם עומד. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הגמילות חסדים. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הגמילות חסדים. עץ חיימי למחזיק עמה ותומכיה מאושר דרכיה דרכי נועם וכל נתיבותיה שלום. השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה חדש ימינו כקדם. Return us to you, and we will return to renew our days as of in days of old. We're on page 588. השבותה לבבך והשבותה
אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, נאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. You may be seated. We will now, as we approach the end of our services, we'll take a moment to acknowledge mourners among our community. If you are during the first 7 days of mourning Shiva, please rise and share with us the names of those that you are remembering. If you are during the cycle of the first 30 days of mourning Shloshim, please rise. If you are during the cycle of the first year of mourning, please rise and share with us the names of those that you are remembering. If you have a yortzeit this week, please rise and share with us who you're remembering. Do we have names in Zoom? No? Not today. You can support our fellows who are standing or sitting, joining us with your voices or your hearts on page 598 for Kaddish Avelin, Mourners Kaddish. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
אמן.
ועלמה דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי. וחייכון ובימכון לכל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב באמרו אמן.
אמן.
יהא שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולמעל מים. ברך וישתבח, ויתפאר, ויתרומם, ויתנשא. ויתהדר, ויתעלה, ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה.
בריחו.
לילה מן כל ברכתה ושילתה. תושבחתה ונחמתה. תמירם בעלמה באמרו אמן. יהא שלמה רבה מן שמיה. וחיים טובים עלינו ועל כל ישראל באמרו אמן. עושה שלום באמרומיו, ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל באמרו אמן. May the memories of your dear ones be always a blessing. יהיה זכרם ברוך. You may be seated. And I have to share that for some reason it didn't come to my mind before saying Kaddish. We did mention this yesterday, but just before Shabbat, after Yom Ha'atzmaut, three fathers actually they were killed in Israel in a terrorist attack. There are still 2 victims that are severely wounded. Those three parents left 16 orphans. The terrorist attack was in a little community that is ultra-Orthodox. And I was thinking about, we just were finishing the celebration of Yom Ha'atzmaut in Israel, the Independence Day. And we were reminded also of the cost, the price that we pay to have a state. And how difficult it is to manage like the feeling of outrage and pain that we have in this moment because the 2 terrorists, they came from the Shtachim, from the territories, from Jenin, I think they came, and at the same time to keep living as a state. A life of goodness, a life of ethics. There are people, I don't think if these things are known, I don't think these things are well known, but there are thousands of people that come from Gaza, for example, every day to work in Israel. And the leader of Hamas is saying, if you don't have pistols, get knives and kill Israelis. Kill Jews. And I think that yesterday we celebrated the existence of the state of Israel. And I think that that kind of challenge that I pray and I wish we wouldn't have is such a important and beautiful Jewish challenge to be able to distinguish and to say, no, there are haters and there are terrorists and there is a need to keep and sustain life. And the state of Israel is constantly dancing that impossible dance. And so yesterday I was thinking about how often we come to judge and to condemn the state of Israel for this decision or for that decision, and how difficult it is to manage life in a place that is really complicated. And I want to pray for the well-being of the state of Israel and for its peace. I want to invite you to open your story in page 370. Tell you in a second. Page 377. Yes, well, 377. שאלו שלום ירושלים, ישילו אוהביך. אבינו שבשמיים, צור ישראל בגואלו, ברך את מדינת ישראל, ראשית צמיחת גאולתנו. הגן עליה בעבודת חסדך, ופרוס עליה סוכת שלומך, ושלח אורך באמתך לראשיה, שריה, ביועציה. ותקנם בעצה טובה מלפניך, ונתת שלום בארץ. ושמחת עולם ליושביה, ונאמר.
Amen.
Let's read in English. O Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace.
Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Amen.
Amen. So, praying for better days and being very grateful that we do have a beloved state, not perfect, but ours. We will conclude our service on page 631. Enke Eloheinu. Enke Eloheinu, Enke Malkeinu, Enke Malkeinu, Enke Moshiach.
Non como nuestro Dios, non como nuestro Señor,
No como nuestro Rey,
no como nuestro Salvador. Ich Eloheinu, ich Adonai, ich
Malkeinu, Enke Moshiach.
¿Quién como nuestro Dios? ¿Quién como nuestro Señor? ¿Quién como nuestro Rey? ¿Quién como nuestro Salvador? No del Eloheinu, no del Adonai, no del
Malkeinu, no del Moshiach.
No oremos a nuestro Dios, no oremos a nuestro Señor, no oremos a nuestro Rey, no oremos a nuestro Salvador. Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonai, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshiach. Bendito nuestro Dios, bendito nuestro Señor, bendito nuestro Rey, bendito nuestro Salvador.
Atau Eloheinu, Atau Adonai, Atau Malkeinu, Atau Moshiach. Tú sos nuestro Dios, tú sos nuestro Señor, tú sos nuestro Rey, tú sos nuestro Salvador. Adonai עוז לעמה ביתנו, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום, שבת שלום everyone, שבת שלום מבורך. La 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 la, 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 la 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 la. Shabbos, Shabbos.